The advocacy arm of the Heritage Foundation, a powerful conservative think tank based in Washington, spent more than $5 million on lobbying in 2021 as it worked to block federal voting rights legislation. You heard me right. Block legislation and advance an ambitious plan to spread its far-right agenda, calling for aggressive voter suppression measures in battleground states. And this reporting is coming from The Guardian. We appreciate you, Guardian, for that. The 990 tax filing was obtained by the watchdog group Documented. It points to the pivotal role that the Heritage Foundation played in trying to suppress and shape the rules within this democracy. The efforts helped explain the unprecedented tidal wave of restrictive voting laws that spread across Republican-controlled states in the wake of 2020 presidential election. The Brennan Center reported that more voter suppression laws were passed in 2021 than in any year since it began monitoring voting legislation more than a decade ago. And so again, if you're trying to check what century you are in, you're right, you are in 2021, but the same tactics that were used in the 20th century, the 19th century, and so on are still being used right now today. And what was the plan? Part of the Heritage Action's 2-year strategy is to promote what it calls model election laws, and put that in quotation marks, focusing initially on 8 battleground states. In a private meeting with donors, the group's executive director boasted about the role Heritage Action had played in pressing Republican-controlled legislatures to impose strict restrictions on voting, including on mail-in voting and early voting days. And Mayor, I remember this like it was yesterday when I was in the legislature, the Ohio Senate. They were doing exactly the same thing that they are doing right now. Again, cheat. If they can't win straight up, they'll just change the rules of the game.
We should also note that while it is important to note that this $5 million was given directly for this effort, this is not the only money that was given. We see organizations like AT&T, Verizon, I'm gonna call them out by name, Philip Morris, Pfizer, General Motors, and Verizon and Walmart give more than $50 million since 2015 to the legislators who were responsible for these state legislature takeovers, for these representatives winning office. So when we hear people bragging about Coca-Cola and their stance against the Republican legislatures in Georgia, that is not a sign that all corporations are showing up in that manner. Because like I just said, $50 million was spent on these legislators. So what $5 million presented as legislation, that was $50 million in backing over the past 7-8 years of these same people. They're being paid to do this. And while AT&T and Verizon may say, well, we didn't know they were gonna propose this legislation, you continue to fund them. That means by default, your silence makes you an accessory of the fact. An accessory of the fact is you too are preventing Black people from having access to full citizenship.
There it is, man. You really bring up a very important point that as we educate our communities and allies to our communities, we should make them very much aware that these corporations are engaged in this activity, even if it is once removed. And once they realize that this is going on and who they're backing, they do have a choice to stop backing these people. So I really love that, Mayor. And furthermore, the group also spent nearly $500,000 on Georgia TV and digital ads during the MLB All-Star game, and spent at least $700,000 more on ads supporting the Georgia Bills passage. So they know exactly what they are doing. And check out this chart from a 2021 that shows states that introduced legislation to restrict voting rights, and states with legislation introduced to restrict voting rights. And we see where the Republican-controlled legislatures are, which is the overwhelming majority. We see Democratic-controlled or divided government. So we have a problem. Voter suppression in all of its forms threatens our representative democracy, and we all should care about this. We just can't sit idly by and continue to let this kind of thing happen. And the Brennan Center, thank God for them, compiled a list of the voter suppression laws, 5 egregious voter suppression laws from 2021. We got Florida Senate Bill 90, Georgia Senate Bill 202, Iowa Senate File 413, Montana House Bill 176, and Texas SB 1. There they are. They're not the only ones, but they are indeed the most egregious ones. We gotta stay, come on, we gotta stay. In a representative democracy, you cannot be on the sidelines. You gotta be actively engaged, because what was given can indeed be taken away. These are, poll taxes and all the other kinds of things that we studied before. It's just the 21st century version of it. So we can't sit back and be idle. The other side is not. We gotta get to this. All right, get to it. Everybody has a role to play.